Hello, everybody, and welcome to another cup of self-empowerment to trust, heal, and be thyself. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome a very special person into our cuppa house today, and that's Dr. Nichol. And Dr. Jess is on the other side of the pond, so she's in the US. And for those of you who haven't had the pleasure of connecting with Jess, I would like to just give a little bit of background knowledge, what she does, who she is, before we dive into our cuppa today. So boss goddess Dr. Jess is a self-connection coach, a yin yoga teacher, and a soon-to-be author. She lives in Northeast Tennessee with her husband, her 4-year-old son, and 3 rescue dogs. She believes that self-connection is the key to our collective expansion. There are so many tools that help us to deepen our connection to ourselves. Some of Jess's personal favorites include moon and menstrual cycle tracking, astrology, human design, yoga, meditation, intentional living, and the chakra system. That's just to name a few. Her why behind her work is because she can envision a world without abuse of any kind. One way she sees it to get closer to this world is through self-connection. We were all meant to be here on our own unique magic, working together as an interconnected whole. And when we connect deeply into ourselves and operate from love and not from fear, the world would be an incredible place for everybody. Well, that's just beautiful. That's just a beautiful way to just open up this conversation. So thank you, Jess, for taking the time, for being with us today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. My absolute pleasure. So let's just dive straight in. I mean, you've got all these beautiful modalities and tools that you have obviously integrated into your daily life. And I'm sure you didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to do all this and, everything's going to be grand. I'm sure that you had equally, like all of us, this journey of learning to trust thyself. So how did your journey to trust thyself actually start, Jess?
I feel like it really pivoted about 7 years ago, in February.
Oh, wow.
It was my Saturn return. I didn't know that at the time because I wasn't, studying astrology, but I got let go from my job. And
Oh,
that was what I had gone to school for. That was like I have a PhD in chemistry and I had spent all of this time studying and learning and got this job and got let go. And it was such a relief. Like I was so unhappy and so disconnected. And I like walked out of the door of the building when I got let go, like crying, but smiling because I
oh,
was like,
wow.
this
That's
isn't,
interesting that you already in that moment knew that it was actually a blessing in disguise, because you could have gone into that fear of like, oh my god, I've completely focused my whole entire life on this was what I was supposed to do, be whatever. And although it was extremely traumatic, I'm sure that you say now that you were crying but you were also smiling. Yeah.
yeah. And I, you know, am grateful for my husband and, the fact that I was able to just essentially sit on the couch with my dogs and have time to reflect and have time to, you know, start charting a different course. And before I had gotten let go, I realized I was really, really jealous and envious of all of the fitness instructors and my
All
yoga
right.
instructors.
Okay.
And I was like, why do you get to have this job where like this is what you're doing, like you're stretching or you're moving your body and it looks so much fun, and my job is not that and it's not fun and I don't enjoy it. And so that was kind of the first like step that I took, was like, okay, I'm going to follow that feeling. I'm going to like
Mm.
embrace that. And that's when I did like a weekend yoga teacher training. And then I ended up doing my 200-hour yoga teacher training. And that was like the first step of like trusting my instincts,
Yeah.
because in undergrad, I switched my major to psychology and then ended up switching back to chemistry. So like the universe was pulling me, but I wouldn't listen. I was like, no, 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 financial stability, like gotta keep doing this chemistry thing. And
Oh,
finally my Saturn returned, since it wasn't in alignment. The universe was like, whap. Like, no, we're gonna spin you around. And the first step on that new path was yoga.
wow. For those who are watching us right now who don't quite know what Saturn return is, could you just quickly explain that to us?
um I'm not like super expert on this,
No,
but
but
it's
in
kind
bite
of,
size, in a bite size kind of
yes,
cuppa, swallowable kind of way that we all get it. Yeah.
it is like this. It can be a shift. If you are not in alignment with your life's path, it is when a big shift will happen for you.
Okay.
And um for me, that was getting let go. For some people, it kind of depends on your astrological chart, like where pieces sit in your chart. But
Mhm.
I've heard of people going through like devastating breakups, or like something big coming up. And it just really depends on where everything is in your chart and what that is for you. But for me, that looked like getting let go, because I wasn't on the right path. And I
Yeah.
feel like a Saturn return is kind of like the universe going, are we in alignment or not? And if we're not, you're going to know. So,
How often
if
do
you're
they
like,
happen, these
okay,
Saturn returns? How often? Because obviously,
it's like,
it's got to be based on someone's chart. But so it's
yes,
not like it's going to
it's
happen every year, is it?
no. So think about the planets going around in the circle.
Hmm.
So the sun, you have a solar return every year,
That's
but
your
a
birthday.
Saturn, yes. So a Saturn, bigger, it's further out there, takes a lot longer to go around. So your
Mm.
first one is like when you're like 28-ish,
Okay.
like 27, 28. And then, 27, 28 years from now, you'll have another one. And if you're
Mm.
sitting there like, oh, yeah, that's nice, but like I don't really believe in this stuff. Adele, her latest album is about her Saturn return.
Oh, she's so cool. I do like her stuff. I do. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so we got a bit sidetracked there. Sorry, that's my mistake. But I just think it's really important because, I know for myself, a while back, I'd be like, Saturn return? What's she on about? So I want to make sure that we're all on the same page when we're having a cuppa together. And yeah, so obviously your first step with that trusting thyself was, following that hunch of wanting to be in the fitness industry and going down the yoga instructor route. Okay. So that obviously happened. But, regarding the other modalities, where did they all come in? Is that on when you started to actually start going deeper on yourself and like removing the layers on yourself to heal maybe aspects which were coming up to be looked at, maybe?
Yes, yes. So I would say the next thing I kind of found was the chakra system, because it's just big in yoga.
Yeah,
And
of
so
course.
I started to like learn about that. I spent a year journaling through the chakras and like just playing with that energy, because I
Wow.
was like, this is so cool. And I want to understand this on a deeper level. And I want
Mm.
to like connect to me. So all of this has been about connecting to me on deeper levels,
Yeah.
and understanding me and listening to me. And that's something we're not really taught to do or know how to
Mm.
do. And
Mhm.
so like that was the next one, was the chakras. And then probably after that was astrology, because I've always been star curious. Like
Okay.
what are they doing up there? Like what is this? What are these about? And I started, there was a workshop at my yoga studio that was on
Mhm.
like beginner astrology, like basic stuff. Like what are
Mhm.
the houses? What are the planets? Like what is a birth chart? And I was just like, what? Like, oh my gosh, give me more. Like, give me more of this. Like, and I think eventually that's kind of how I ended up into like human design, but
Yeah.
also like moon wisdom, and like because the moon is up there with the stars. So um like things would just come my way. So
Mm.
I've noticed that even if I'm not searching for it, but because I'm on this new path that makes more sense for me and it's
Yeah.
like what I'm enjoying, people like things just come to me like it'll be a book recommendation or even like social media. Sometimes like something will come up and it's like this is your next book to read or your next workshop to take or the next thing to
Yeah.
learn or the next person.
Yeah, no, I find that too. I do find that at the moment I find for myself, and it's not like your deep spiritual books or anything like that, obviously I've read stuff like that too, but I feel like, at the moment I'm really being called to like fiction and like storytelling. So I'm like, if I go to like the library or something like that or in a store, it's like I'm being intuitively guided to pick up a book. And I'm like, okay, read the back, think, all right, why not? And then it's during actually reading that book, it's like ding, 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 light bulb moments going off where I'm like, ah. And this is like, fictional, where I'm like, I understand the message which is being relayed back to me. So we are always being intuitively guided. So it's so important, as you said, that you were following your intuitive hunches. And I think it's at a stage where many of us are at that at the moment. Many of us are really starting to move down that path of really following that gut instinct, Yeah. Okay. So, you started to trust and you started the healing, um, obviously through all like the modalities that you use, it's going deeper and kind of like a self-investigation, isn't it? I mean, with astrology and human design, I'm not an expert on that by no means, but I see it from that higher perspective is that it is literally cracking your own code, I guess, at the end of the day, who you are and why you're like this and how you interact with other people and how, other, like with the planets, some of us are really tuned into the planets and the stars. So that's going to have an impact on how we show up, how we feel, how we might need to put in more boundaries, how we might need to be, a bit more loving towards ourselves as well. So, yeah, that really makes sense how your journey progressed there, totally. So obviously you've given up the chemistry dream, so to say. What would that moment where got let go in your job, would you say that was the turning point where you thought to yourself, okay, I'm going to start really being me, or did that come later?
I'd say that was probably the biggest turning point, but I
Mm.
still ended up dabbling with chemistry. Like I ended up adjuncting as a professor and teaching chemistry. And then the
Okay.
universe would like it's constantly testing you. Like, do you want this? Like, do you want to do chemistry? Because I will give you opportunities. And like all of these opportunities started opening up. And it was like, well, do you want this new path that you're creating? Or do you want the path that you were told to take by other people,
Mm.
by society? And it's available
Mm.
if you actually want it. And
They're
so
kind of testing you to really tune in with yourself to really let go of that, am I going to people please? Am I going to do what I think others think I need to do? Or am I going to trust that it's all going to open up and unfold exactly as it needs to be, even though I can't see those two steps in front of me, basically?
yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, that feels very relatable, I'm sure, for a lot of people, from a lot of us, definitely. So, what advice would you personally like to give our viewers today on, stepping into discovering who they are on their journey?
I think I'm gonna bring it back to self-connection because that's like my thing. Like the deeper we connect to ourselves and in whatever way that works for you. So like my husband, it's mowing the grass, riding dirt bikes, and sitting in a tree out on our
Grounding.
property.
He's
Yes.
grounding himself massively.
And he knows nothing about the chakras. He knows nothing about grounding, right? But like you don't have to know anything about the planets. You don't have to know anything about the, stars because they're going to impact you no matter what. The
Mm.
magic is always going to be around us. And so it's starting to embrace that magic and
Mhm.
to like get out of your head, right? Like I spent so many years in this, profession of very intellectual, very in your head, kind of ignoring the magic. And then, but the magic is the fun part. It's what kind of guides us. Like it's what guided me to end up, doing coaching training and seeing like rainbows in the sky and being like,
Yeah.
oh, this is the next step. And just like that stillness and that listening. And so you don't have to have fancy tools. None of this requires fancy tools or any knowledge that you don't already have because it's already inside of you. And
Yeah.
that's the coolest part.
Yeah, I think that's very important that you've said that. Obviously we can build upon the tools. I always like to see it some kind of remembrance of, remembrance of thyself, everything which is already deep within you, deep within the depths of your soul, connected through the portal of your heart. It's in you, but it's been numbed down or we've forgotten about it. We've arrived and we've forgotten everything. A lot of us have. Some people already come in and they're completely switched on with everything, which is amazing. But to be directed to return to yourself, to look within, is very important. And whether you choose to start doing that on yourself or whether you choose to, look outside of yourself and get support, but someone who's also going to take your hand and say, okay, I'm going to help you. But at the end of the day, I'm just reminding you how you can do this yourself, basically. That's how I like to see it anyway.
Yeah.
So, how can people, if someone's watching us today and say, hey, I'm really interested in this, the Saturn return sparked an interest, human design or yoga, the yin yoga. I mean, I adore yin yoga. I think it's just the best. And yeah, I do. I love it. Totally. Or, just generally feel like I'm vibing with Jess. How can people reach out to you? How can people work with you? How can people connect with you?
Yeah. They can find me on Instagram or Facebook, Boss Goddess Revolution. Um, all the social medias is basically Boss Goddess Revolution. That way
Mhm.
they can find me and, you know, we can hang out and have fun.
Yeah, definitely. And she's very fun to hang out, I must admit. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so this has been really, really lovely, really cozy. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers today about, on the topic of self-connection?
I feel like, all the answers are inside, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily easy to get to. And there's nothing wrong with connection and community and support and finding things that sound fun to you, whether it's an Akashic reading with
Mm.
Kelly or a human design reading, or, like the point of all of us being here and connecting to ourselves is also that we all like interconnect and work together.
Oh,
And
definitely.
so, like, that's part of the fun too, right? Is like, yes, all of the answers are inside, but like, we don't have to go it alone. We don't have to just be like sitting in the wilderness on a rock by ourselves. Like, we can talk and connect and have fun. And
Exactly. That is the fun part of it as well, because, they are with you, but some stuff is really deeply, buried. And I'm going to be really honest. Sometimes we don't want to look. Sometimes we're like, nah, I'm fine, I'm good. And then, as I said before, astrology, human design, fascinating. But I need someone to, explain that to me, because that just goes over my head. And like for some people, yeah, the whole Akashic stuff that might go over their head completely as well, although we all have that divine birthright to connect to our Akash, it's all there. And energy healing as well, whether it be Reiki or angelic or whichever modality that you use, we're all here to work as a community to help each other be that brightest version of themselves. And I don't mean that in an intellectual way. I mean that in, you know, being their favorite self or their authentic self, or, you know, just feeling darn good about themselves, basically. That's at the end of the day what it is. It doesn't have to be an authentic or thing, whatever. It's like, okay, I'm comfortable in my skin and I feel good, because that's going to radiate outside of you. And that's going to attract those who are meant to be in your field, the people who you're supposed to hang out with, the, you know, yeah, that's just how I'd put it, basically. Yeah. Good. Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us for a cuppa today. It's been absolutely wonderful that you've joined us, and we look forward to you. Yeah, I've got my cup of tea here, very British. It's my black tea with milk. Never mind. Yes. So, you know, we look forward to catching up again. And if you want to connect with Jess and you can't remember how to reach out to her, get in contact with me and I will be delighted to connect the two of you. And yeah, take care of yourself and, you know, go deep with that self-connection, because you're going to find a lot of answers, also a lot of joy come through that as well. So yeah. And wherever you are in the world, have a beautiful morning, afternoon, or evening, and take good care of thyself. Okay, take care and bye-bye.